Do you remember seeing articles over the last few years about scientists being able to collect actual biological matter and DNA from dinosaur fossils and what the possibilities were in their ability to actually recreate long extinct creatures? How about the AI debate? AI is everywhere, becoming more and more embedded into our daily lives. Do you want to know what my first thoughts were on that? No, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you anyway. My first, second, and third thoughts were, hasn't there been like 12 movies explaining in very specific detail why all of this is a terrible idea? In Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey, the computer HAL allowed for access to vast information. Today, smartphones and the internet allow for access to a wealth of information instantly, fulfilling a similar vision. But will this convenience of having extensive information at our fingertips lead to the rest of Clarke's vision? In his stories, Isaac Asimov envisioned intelligent home automation, where homes could manage themselves and respond to human commands. Today, technologies like voice controlled assistants like Siri and Alexa, smart thermostats, and automated lighting systems have made smart homes a reality. However, Asimov didn't really see that as humanity's happily ever after. Even in The Jetsons, the 1960s cartoon, Rosie the robot served as a household assistant. Although not yet common or really affordable, companies like Tesla producing Optimus, as well as other companies producing robotic vacuums and our AI assistants, have made significant progress towards realizing the dream of fully autonomous robots. But how did that work out for us in movies like The Matrix and Battlestar Galactica? For over 200 years, science fiction has fascinated and entertained people all over the world, dazzling us with tales of glittering starships and space princesses from galaxies far, far away. We marvel at the technologies and concepts our fictional worlds seem to predict for our own. Science fiction uniquely captivates its audience, inspiring them to delve deeper into the genre through collecting memorabilia, engaging in discussions, and even embodying their favorite characters through cosplay. It has a power to ignite a passion for science, literature, and creativity, leading many fans to pursue careers as scientists, authors, and filmmakers, leaving their own mark in the world of science fiction. Even though respected scientists like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking have penned their own science fiction novels, the genre is still considered by many, especially in the literary community, as no more than unserious pulp fiction. And that has been the genre's greatest accomplishment, convincing the masses that science fiction is no more than harmless, spirited fun, when in actuality, cloaked underneath the silly aliens and ray guns, lies the true purpose of our chrome-plated fantasies. And it couldn't be further from unserious. Inside the stellar and glittering cheese lies the bitter pill that is science fiction's secret mission. Sci-fi has been trying to save humanity from itself, and thanks to centuries of evidence, I can prove it. Hey there, nerds. I'm your host, Danny Sansasi, published science fiction author and registered super nerd. And this is Comics and, well, literally everything. The channel where we dive into all things dorky, share all the best nerdy news, and spill all the tea on all that hot geeky goss. You can help support the channel in the easiest and freest way possible. All you have to do is click that like button, click the subscribe, and make sure to ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more nerdy goodness. So drop a comment, say hello, share to your friends. Let's get the ball rolling. Aside from a general agreement that it is fiction that involves some sort of time travel, space, and or fantastical technology, defining science fiction can be pretty tricky. Fans and scholars alike have struggled to do so since the very beginning, which is also a bit of a hot button issue lacking a consensus. One belief identifies the ancient Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, circa 2150 to 2000 BCE, as the actual first science fiction story, while others believe that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, published in 1818, the classic mad scientist warning of using technology to play God and the responsibility of creators for their creations, a lot of people see that as the beginning of the science fiction genre. And yes, Edgar Allan Poe did contribute with his gothic horror science fiction, but it really started to take off with the very prolific Jules Verne in the Victorian era. Since Shelley, Poe, and Verne, science fiction continued to proliferate and evolved with the technological and psychosocial advancements as well as the status quo. Conflicts like both world wars and the threat and fear of communism further influenced and grew sci-fi under authors like H.G. Wells, Robert Heinlein, and George Orwell. While Verne's books were often celebrated for their adventurous, optimistic spirit and the foresight into scientific innovation, authors like Wells, Orwell, and Heinlein took the genre to the darker corners of the human experience. With the introduction of motion pictures, comic books, and television, sci-fi grew its audience exponentially. Despite being seen by the general public as inconsequential entertainment, the mid-20th century produced some of the most lauded science fiction literature. Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984, Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, Frank Herbert's Dune, and of course, Arthur C. Clarke's masterpiece of the silver screen, 2001: A Space Odyssey, solidified the fact that science fiction wasn't distracting entertainment for the immature and uneducated peasants. It was a valid art form, weaving intricate, engrossing, and complex tapestries that spoke not only to our imaginations, but to our collective conscience. Sci-fi saw the world not only how it was and what it could be, but also what it would be if we were not mindful of ourselves. Inspired by the leading figures in classic science fiction, our modern-day sci-fi authors and creators continue this mission of warning humanity through entertainment to save it from itself. Perhaps due in part to the fact that science fiction has often been seen as trivial, it could have kept us from heeding some of the more important messages from the stories of our past. As time progresses and the world evolves, these warnings have become darker and more evident. Or is it the changes in our world that are making these messages more apparent? Considering the scientific revolution and the significant discoveries in astronomy, physics, and mathematics that took place during the early days of the budding genre, it makes sense that the two men considered as its fathers lived during this time, though born decades apart. The breakthroughs of this era were nonetheless impactful when it came to capturing the imaginations and fears of both men. Jules Verne was the French maestro of sci-fi romance. Think of him as the original I Told You So guy, okay? His tales like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth were not just about adventure, but also about the science that could make it happen. He was all about the gadgets, the submarines, and the steam-powered contraptions. He's the father of steampunk. Verne's vision was rooted in the science of his day and extrapolated into the future with a dash of imagination. On the other hand, H.G. Wells, the British wizard himself, took a slightly different track with his scientific fantasies. With works like The Time Machine and War of the Worlds, he wasn't just interested in the how, but deeply rooted in the what if in terms of society, evolution, and human nature. His stories often carried social commentary, questioning the implications of scientific advancements on humanity. Verne's narratives are like detailed blueprints. He loved the specifics. Wells, however, painted with broader strokes, creating scenarios that left you pondering the future of mankind. Both were prophets, so to speak, in their own right, but while Verne's predictions often seemed like a checklist for inventors, submarines, helicopters, Wells was more about the societal shifts, like the class warfare between the Eloi and the Morlocks in The Time Machine. Verne's stories have a certain optimism and belief in progress. Wells, though, could be quite the cynic, often showing the dark side of human nature when it is faced with the unknown. If Verne was the engineer dreaming up the next big thing, Wells was the philosopher pondering if we should build it. Together they laid down the tracks for what would become science fiction, one with his eye on the stars and the other on the mirror reflecting humanity. Both Jules Verne and H.G. Wells were ahead of their time, not just in envisioning future technologies and scenarios, but with embedding cautionary tales into their narratives. Both authors, through their speculative fiction, urged readers to consider the long-term implications of human actions, whether it be through the lens of technology, society, or morality. Though using very different tones and styles, both wrote about their fears instigated by the explosion of scientific discovery of their time. They used their fantastical and rich stories to share their concerns with their readers. Their warnings, wrapped in tales of adventure or horror, have aged like fine wine, becoming even more relevant in our current era of technological and ecological challenges. The mid-20th century continued to serve as a cultural mirror reflecting and magnifying the deep-seated fears of communism, fascism, and rapid technological advancements. Fear of communism was often portrayed through alien invasions or mind control scenarios, where the loss of individuality to a collective was seen as a direct parallel to communist ideologies. Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1956 is a prime example, where the loss of self to a collective consciousness mirrored fears of losing one's identity to communism. Works like George Orwell's 1984 painted a grim picture of totalitarian fascist socialism, where the state controls every aspect of your life, including thought, language, history. This was a cautionary tale against the extreme ends of socialist, communist, or fascist oppressive governance, where individual freedom is eradicated. And he didn't want us to forget. Sci-fi often explores the tension between the collective good and individual rights, with stories like Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, warning of societies where communal living leads to rebellion against oppressive systems, highlighting the ideal of liberty against the backdrop of potential socialist oppression. Probably Heinlein's most notable novel, Starship Troopers from 1959, portrayed the arachnids as a communist metaphor, suggesting that only a highly organized collective society like that of insects could thrive under communism, hence portraying communism as antithetical to human individuality and freedom. The fear of technology was often linked to the methods by which a communist or socialist state might maintain power. The omnipresent surveillance in 1984, aka Big Brother, was a terrifying vision of technology used to monitor and control citizens, a fear that was very real during the Cold War and still feels very, very relevant today. The advent of computers and robotics raised fears about the future of work. Scientist, professor, and author Isaac Asimov wrote stories like I, Robot and Runaround and introduced the 3 laws of robotics, but also showcased a world where machines could replace human labor, echoing concerns about a socialist state where the means of production are centralized, as well as the less subtle warnings of overdependency on AI and advanced technologies breeding complacency and intellectual and physical flaccidity in men. Asimov's views towards AI and robotics, including the 3 laws, have become the gospel by which modern engineers and roboticists work. With technology, there is a fear of losing that which makes us human. Stories like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick and its film adaptation starring Harrison Ford and Sean Young, Blade Runner, delved into the ethical implications of creating artificial beings that could be indistinguishable from humans, questioning the soul of a society that might treat people like machines. The combination of technology and totalitarian control often led to dystopian futures where technology was not just a tool but a means of oppression. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, for example, uses technology technology and pharmaceuticals to control population growth and happiness, reflecting the fears of how a socialist state might use science to manipulate its citizens. The rapid technological advancements of the mid 20th century were often portrayed as either the weapon or the salvation against communist expansion. Films like The Day the Earth Stood Still in 1951 used the alien Klaatu to critique the nuclear arms race and the Cold War, suggesting that technology could either unite or destroy humanity regardless of political ideology. Sci-fi from this period often envisioned the aftermath of nuclear war. Novels like On the Beach by Neville Shute and films like The Day After in 1983 didn't just depict the end of the world, they made you feel it, wrapping you in the dread of a slowly dying planet. These stories were less about the bang and more about the whimper of human civilization fading away. The concept of mutually assured destruction was ripe for sci-fi exploration. Stories like Dr. Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick took this to the absurd, dark comedy heights, illustrating the ludicrousness of nuclear strategy where everyone loses. It was a satirical reminder of how close we were to the edge. Many stories like Star Wars featured resistance against both technological overreach and ideological tyranny, with characters fighting to preserve human values, freedom, and even the essence of humanity against a backdrop where both technology and political systems would strip these away. Sci-fi was not just escapism, it was a dialogue with the fears of its time, reflected the paranoia of Soviet influence, the potential for technology to become a tool of oppression, and the existential dread of losing what makes us so uniquely human. These stories have served as warnings about unchecked technological progress and political systems, often critiquing the current state of affairs by imagining where they might lead if taken to the extremes. Science fiction during this period was a fertile ground for exploring the fears of communism, socialism, and technology, often showing them as intertwined threats of human freedom, individuality, and existence. These narratives were not just about the future, but were deeply rooted in the anxieties of the present, using speculation to discuss the very real concerns of the Cold War era, possibly the most beloved, at least by me, and often imitated science fiction series of this era that encapsulates precisely the mid-20th century's fears and themes. Resonating with the era's cultural and political anxieties is Frank Herbert's Dune series. The spice melange, vital for space travel, longevity, and precognition, clearly parallels oil in our world, reflecting fears about resource scarcity and the geopolitical tensions it can create. This mirrors the mid-century oil crisis and the Cold War's resource-based conflicts, highlighting how control over a critical resource can dictate global, and in Dune cases, galactic politics. Herbert explicitly warned against the dangers of charismatic leaders, which can be seen in Paul Atreides' transformation to the messianic Muad'Dib, reflecting concerns of authoritarianism and the cult of personality, reminiscent of figures like Hitler or Stalin, or even the fear of any demagogue leading a democratic society astray. The series also explores how religion can be used as a tool for control, echoing fears about theocratic states or the use of religion as political manipulation during the Cold War. The Bene Gesserit's Missionaria Protectiva and Paul's Jihad illustrate this clearly. Dune was one of the first sci-fi novels to deeply engage with ecological themes, warning about the consequences of environmental exploitation. Arrakis, with its harsh desert environment, serves as a cautionary tale about what will happen when a planet's natural resources are not respected or managed wisely, a theme that resonated with the burgeoning environmentalist movement of the 1960s. The backstory of the Butlerian Jihad, where humanity rebels against the thinking machines it had created, reflect mid-century fears about the dehumanizing effects of technology or its potential to control or replace human labor. This critique of unchecked technological advancement and the loss of human agency or individuality to machines has resonated with and continues to inspire writers and filmmakers to this day. While not as overt as in some sci-fi, the presence of atomics in Dune and their use as a last resort reflects the nuclear anxieties of the Cold War, where the balance of power hinged on the threat of mutual annihilation. The complex political intrigue of plots within plots mirrors the Cold War's atmosphere of espionage, distrust, and the constant fear of betrayal or hidden agendas, both on the personal and state level. The Bene Gesserit's breeding program and the mental disciplines like the voice or spice-induced prescience touch on fears or fascinations with eugenics and the manipulation of human evolution, a topic with both scientific and ethical implications still debated to this day. In Dune, Herbert crafted a narrative that not only entertained but engaged with some of the most pressing issues of his time, offering a rich commentary on human nature, governance, and the future of our species in ways that continue to resonate to this day. Modern science fiction continues to serve as a mirror to contemporary society, reflecting our current anxieties, hopes, and technological advancements. With the explosion of the entertainment industry and the internet, the science fiction genre has proliferated and evolved in ways that not even H.G. Wells could have predicted. While still not as respected as other genres in the literary world, science fiction has become mainstream. I would dare say that it is the mainstream now. Our knowledge, science, and technology have almost caught up with our imaginations, thus making our fears that much bigger and the warnings to follow far more urgent. One of our more prevalent fears is that of losing what we cannot replace yet, our planet. Works like The Road by Cormac McCarthy or the series The Last of Us depict worlds ravaged by environmental disasters or disease, reflecting our real-world fears about climate change, resource depletion, and the irreversible damage humans might cause to the planet. Stories like The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson explore both the catastrophic effects of climate change, mirroring debates on how to mitigate or reverse climate damage. Another of the more relevant concerns comes thanks to the advent of smartphones and algorithmic intelligence software. Seeing robotic assistants on the market from companies like Tesla and Honda, AI and consciousness is at the forefront of many heated debates. Films like the Terminator movies or Ex Machina or TV shows like Westworld delve into the implications of artificial intelligence, exploring our consciousness, ethics of AI creation, and the potential for AI to either save or doom humanity, echoing current discussions had probably right this moment on Twitter. Parallel to our concerns with the exponential evolution of digital space and AI, surveillance and privacy has become a serious concern, now more so than ever. In the age where data is king, sci-fi like Black Mirror on Netflix reflects our fears and shows the dangers it possesses in privacy invasion, surveillance capitalism, and the loss of personal freedom in the digital world where every action can be monitored and monetized. The cultural fusion and conflict in things like Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell or Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer explore themes of cultural identity blending or clashing in a global world, reflecting the complexities of multiculturalism, migration, and the search for identity in a rapidly changing world. Yet another topic hotly debated amongst family, friends, and strangers. Themes of post-national societies, like In the Culture by Ian M. Banks, present a utopian vision of a post-scarcity, post-national society which mirrors conversations about the future of nation-states and the potential for global governance or anarchy. In a time where almost anyone can surgically alter any part of themselves that they choose, the topic of genetic engineering is becoming more relevant every single day. Movies like Jurassic Park and Gattaca starring Ethan Hawke and Jude Law, or novels like Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, tackle the ethics, implications, and social divides that could result from genetic manipulation, reflecting current debates on CRISPR, gene editing, the moral boundaries of biotechnology, and the dangers of extreme vanity. Commentaries on transhumanism in works like Altered Carbon on Netflix explore the concept of human advancement or the transfer of consciousness, questioning what it means to be human in an era where technology could transcend biological limitations. Long before COVID-19, stories like The Stand by Stephen King or Contagion by Robin Cook had already explored large-scale pandemics, biological warfare, and the societal breakdown they could cause, mirroring our own concerns and debates on global health security and the limits of personal responsibility. Our world of constant inundation of information and communication, as predicted by Arthur C. Clarke, has grown and reinforced fears of authoritarianism and surveillance. The resurgence of dystopian narratives like The Handmaid's Tale or The Hunger Games reflects concerns about authoritarianism, the erosion of democracy, and the manipulation of the truth in an age of fake news and propaganda. Trust nothing, because we can fake anything. Stories demonstrating our concerns over economic inequality are extremely popular themes in media today. Inequality of class warfare and economic disparity, as seen in Elysium and Snowpiercer, echo real-world issues of income inequality and access to resources. With the new space race, stories like The Expanse, For All Mankind, and The Martian reflect our collective dream and dread of colonizing other planets, questioning human adaptability, ethics of colonization, and the survival of our species. Modern science fiction acts as a cultural barometer, capturing the zeitgeist through speculative narratives that explore the potential ramifications of our current paths. It provides not just entertainment, but a space for reflection, warning, and sometimes hope about the future we are shaping with each technological, sociological, environmental choice we take. The lure of new technology and the convenience it brings to our lives is a powerful temptation. It took me weeks to research and write this episode, poring over articles, books, and essays until my eyeballs went dry. It would have been so much easier and so much more convenient to just tell a computer what I was thinking and have it spit right out a completely accurate and cohesive paper. But it doesn't work that way, does it? Despite the moral implications, software is incapable of true creativity. One could argue that it comes from the human soul or spirit, whatever you call it. A computer doesn't have it. Computers can accurately copy something that's already been created, as in algorithmic intelligence, what we call AI right now, but it can never truly create something new and empathic. Besides all of that, Star Trek has already warned and educated me about the physical and philosophical dangers, cutting corners with AI and technology. One of the greatest benefits of the science fiction genre infiltrating our culture are the communities that it has inspired. Thanks to sci-fi and advancements like the internet, we are able to not only share our mutual love of science fiction, but also dissect and discuss our favorite concepts, themes, and dilemmas, thus educating more and more of humanity about the dangers of what could be if we become complacent. Get yourself a sci-fi nerd friend, okay? We know what to look out for. The robot apocalypse is upon us! When Mary Shelley, H.G. Wells, and even Isaac Asimov put pen to paper, could they have foreseen that their fictional creations would grow beyond mere entertainment? Were they expecting them to grow beyond speculative philosophy, but a clearly defined guide of what not to do? Of all the literary and cinematic genres, science fiction seems to have become the most critical. Sure, there's history, and it teaches us of our past mistakes to prevent us from repeating them. Sci-fi teaches us to be wary of the complacency and hubris that can destroy our future. While it is fictional, okay, and it can incorporate elements of fantasy, its consequences and ramifications are very real. Science fiction provides us with insights on how to protect ourselves and our future. Thanks to this genre, we now have a roadmap for addressing the complications and upheavals brought about with technological, societal, and scientific advancements. Science fiction has explored numerous possibilities over the past 200 years, offering us warnings about the temptations of convenience and the allure of the next shiny new thing. It encourages us to trust in ourselves and to value the human spirit above all else. The real question is, will we listen? I encourage every single one of you to read anything by Isaac Asimov, Robert Heinlein, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Frank Herbert, George Orwell, especially read George Orwell. These stories will not only grab your attention and your imagination, but you're gonna learn a lot, I promise you. What do you think? Do you agree with me that science fiction has been trying to warn and save humanity from itself since its inception? What are some of your favorite warnings, lessons that you have learned from science fiction? Tell me down below. And who knows, maybe sharing this video spreads the good word. You never know till you try. But that's all I got for you nerds today on the secret mission of science fiction. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor, give me a big fat thumbs up right there by hitting that like button. If you're new, I sure hope you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more nerdy content. If you would like to support the channel in other ways, I have so many different options. Just check the description below and links to all the socials. Until then, nerds, I've been Danny. You've been awesome, and I will see you in the next one. Make sure to check under your bed tonight because
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!